What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I've got another 2022 release, and it was actually released in festivals in 2021. Came out today as I record this in 2022. Just got back from watching the first screening at my local theater. And I am very excited to talk to you guys about what is probably one of my top 2 or 3, if not number 1, favorite films of 2022 in the horror genre this year. I'm probably going to talk myself up a little higher on that by the end of this video. But I'm talking about 2022's The Black Phone. Now, The Black Phone had a lot of hype. Like 6 months ago, I was seeing trailers. I was hearing festival buzz. I was just really excited. This trailer was one of the most mysterious trailers that I had seen in a long, long time. And just based on the trailer, it reminded me of the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode about the prank caller that got in trouble for making prank calls. Just the phone and the environment reminded me of the caller episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And so I was hooked on the idea. Then I saw Ethan Hawke was cast as one of the main characters, and I was more excited. And then I had heard that it was a film from a short story that Joe Hill wrote, which is a personal favorite author of mine. Very, very, very top of my list as far as thriller/horror authors. So very excited coming into this. And let me tell you, I think it exceeded my expectation. This film runs an hour and 42 minutes, and it does not even feel like that. I was just like, at the end, I looked at my phone, and I was like, oh my God, it's already over. I can't believe that the time went this fast because it was well paced. But let's get into the credits here, and I'll tell you guys why I enjoyed this film so much. This film was written by Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill, like I said, based on a Joe Hill short story. If you guys don't know who Joe Hill is, he's done things like Horns, Nosferatu. He's done, there's so many good ones. Can't think of them all right now. But he is Stephen King's son. And he's one of the best authors going today. This was also directed by Scott Derrickson, and it was starring Mason Thames as Finney, Madeline McGraw as Gwen, and Ethan Hawke as the Grabber. And basically this story is pretty simple. It's a fairly easy story to follow. We open up, I think, at the end of the 70s, like 1978, 79, something like that. Basically, there's this town legend going around that somebody is riding around in a van with balloons and is kidnapping children in the area. And there's not too much else that I can say because I just came out today and I'm not going to spoil it. So this review is spoiler free. I might throw in some spoilers at the very end of the video, but I'll let you guys know. Going to be spoiler free here. But one of our important characters winds up getting kidnapped by this Grabber character. And we're trying to kind of delve deeper into the psyche of these characters as our protagonist dig deep and try and survive with the help of this mysterious room and the black phone. And that's about all I can say without spoiling anything. But a bunch of characters make audio appearances based on this black phone. And it's a race against time, basically, for our main character to try and survive, and our antagonist to kind of unravel a little bit. So we've got a bunch of games inside a game here. And I really enjoy that psychological aspect. And I want to apologize for all the start and stops. I'm breathing hard. It's a very hot room today. I'm in this sweat box, and I'm trying to breathe and survive during this review. But my first big note here was deep and mysterious characters. I feel like there's a few main characters in this and a few important side characters. And I feel like every character in this has some kind of a layer. Whether it's some kind of trauma they overcame, some kind of inner fierceness they bring out, starting kind of in a mousy place and evolving into a fighting for yourself and standing up for yourself place. Every character, good and bad, have some kind of layers to them that see them through a journey. I love when characters start in one place and evolve to someplace else, and the trauma they go through is seen on their faces early, and the new trauma brings out more inner strength in them, and more of their bonds and more of their toughness, and you see a lot of that in this film. I really enjoy that, and there's also a layer of mysteriousness because you don't really get an entire lesson as to what is going on here. You don't really know exactly what happened with the family beforehand. You don't know exactly kind of why some of these kidnappings are taking place. You don't necessarily know what this antagonist really is. And to some degree in certain movies, in my opinion, those things can be a detriment. In this film, it feels scarier that way. I think us not knowing exactly why or who this main character bad guy is and some of the backstories kind of make you more intrigued by this. I think this grabber character is very mysterious. It's part Doctor Sleep and part Pennywise, and there's a lot of interesting kind of layers here to kind of what makes these characters tick, what the good ones had to survive before, and what the bad ones what's caused them to do these negative things. I'm trying to be vague here, but every character again has multiple layers to them. It has some mystery in a way that builds the suspense and does not hurt the movie, in my opinion, for me. And usually those things do kind of bother me when I don't get things kind of spelled out, or at least get a clear resolution as to why this happened. I usually don't like it, but in this case, I really enjoyed that. The acting in general for me was very, very good. Ethan Hawke as the grabber was a great character in this. They didn't give you too much. You didn't see a lot of the characters going through a lot of emotions on screen. You saw little bits and pieces. You saw day-by-day moments with Ethan Hawke's character and Mason Thames. You saw them kind of interact together, and they had good chemistry and they had good delivery, but they didn't overexpose the main character. The main character was kept mysterious and kept enigmatic and kept you kind of going, I wonder what this means. I wonder what the hidden meaning is. I wonder if there's good in there. So Ethan Hawke was wonderful. Child actors, as you guys know, can be hit or miss. I think they miss more than they hit, but lately, the last couple of years in horror, we're finding a lot of children adventure movies being better and better. And I think Mason Thames and Madeline McGraw here, as brother and sister, Finney and Gwen, were excellent. You need some strong actors, especially if they're kids, to play off such a veteran like Ethan Hawke, who has such a nice expanded range of what he can do. And these two actors, Mason and Madeline, did a wonderful job. I love their chemistry. The brother and sister snarky, witty chemistry was really, really strong, which goes into future points of mine. But I love the way they played off each other, and I love how they stood up to people in their lives, and I love how they grew together in their bond. And their bond is kind of the central story that's trying to keep things from falling apart, and I really like that. They're written together very well, and all the actors' chemistry in their individual scenes really shines through. In a movie where you only have a few main characters, if they don't bond well and you don't see the chemistry on screen, the movie's going to fall flat. The acting and the chemistry in between the scenes here is really, really nice. My next big note here, score plus sound design equals tension. One of the biggest pluses I have for this is that it relies a lot on basic sound design and basic score. Movies like this, anytime there's any kind of, if they involved aspects of paranormal stuff or any kind of ghosts or any kind of hauntings, any kind of movies that have any elements or finite possibilities of those things tend to rely too much on jump scares. James Wan. Too many movies tend to just rely on cheap jump scares, and then all the horror just comes from things being loud and jumping out at you where anyone's going to jump. This movie has a couple of those jump scares. Two in particular got me really good in my seat. I was in the top row of the theater, so I couldn't kick anybody's chair, and I did jump at least twice really good. And there are some good jump scares in this, and they use the lighting and stuff well to accentuate those. But I feel like the scares in this come from the tension. They come from earlier characters that make you threatened. It comes from the symbolism of this main bad guy, the balloons, the van, stuff like that. It comes from waiting to see who's going to snap, who's going to make a move. This whole thing is a cat and mouse game for the main character to try to get what they want and for the survivor to try and survive. And you get really good tension. Some of the just like floorboards and the bubbling undertones. And then the score, when they have some brief tracks, there's not a whole lot of soundtrack stuff on this, but when you get some brief stuff, the score is really, really good. And the tension, while simple, is very, very effective. You got basically one character in a basement, and they do a good job of taking that minimalist concept and using the score and using the objects in the environment to make it really interesting. You're looking to see what can this character use to try and get out. What can they use for a weapon? What is the bad person going to use against the good person? How are they going to go back and forth? What is the antagonist letting the protagonist do? And what is this game? So the environment, the objects, and the tension are really well done here, and they take a minimalist concept and make it really, really strong. Another note that I have here is well-written dialogue. This goes back to, I think Ethan Hawke's dialogue, while brief, is very good. And again, I like the father character's dialogue in this. That feels kind of real. The delivery of the father was very, very good in this. And Mason and Madeline, their dialogue was real. They talked how kids talk these days, even though it was set in the 70s. I think all the kids felt realistic. I think all the side characters on their missions felt realistic. The pacing of this was good, and the dialogue, because again, when you have scenes with just two characters in it, or a few main characters at a time, you have to rely on good dialogue to keep it interesting. And they use their dialogue to build a bond with each other, to use sarcasm. It was realistic. It brought out some character stuff. They told you some good exposition with some brief dialogue. They used a lot of like basic facials and like quiet time with no dialogue to tell you the story. They did a good job at showing instead of telling. And when they had to tell you, they kept it brief. And the dialogue was very, very good. I give a lot of credit to Joe Hill from the stuff they used in his book. Also to Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill for writing a very accurate portrayal that felt like it moved along very fast. Another thing I have is mask. One of the characters wears a mask. I won't spoil it, but it's an awesome mask. They created a fresh look, and creating a fresh look for an antagonist in horror these days is very tough because we've seen it all, especially masks. This was Tom Savini and Jason Baker, my fellow Pittsburgh alumnus. Jason Baker's done a lot of stuff in Pittsburgh and gone on to Hollywood to do a lot of stuff. Tom Savini, everyone watching my video here knows who the hell Tom Savini is. They designed the mask and they did a great job. And then I want to encompass that and say that all the looks in general. My next note is period appropriate. This movie, or at least the first part of this movie, takes place in the late 70s. I think it all does. And I feel like the dialogue, they had some 70s dialogue in there. The lighting and stuff on the outside felt very 70s. They kept that accurate. And I think a lot of the way the characters were dressed and reacted were all 70s appropriate. So they did a good job of taking their time period and sticking to it with some pop culture references that you guys will appreciate. So that being said, there's not much negative for me to this. Maybe I could say I wanted to know a little bit more about why this was happening to an extent. Maybe I could say I want to know kind of what happens with the main characters a little further beyond the time period they used. And I kind of want the father to have a little more of a resolution kind of to why he feels the way he feels and kind of where he comes out of that and kind of see what his post-trauma story becomes. So a couple small little nitpicks. But I feel like this moved along fast and this was a good story. And it was simple, but it was riveting. And all the moving parts they had. They had a side story with some police. They had a side story with some relatives. They had a brother-sister connection story. They had some things with a father. They had a bunch of other things going on that combined some comedic dialogue elements with some good psychology, with some paranormal, with some inner grit kind of things. And a lot of those themes pieced together very well. It all felt realistic in spite of the fact that some things are not seen every day. They're not entirely this worldly. But they used all these things in a very good, tense, realistic way. So good looks, good dialogue, good acting, good pacing, good sound design. Big fan of this movie. I'm going to have it right now slightly above X in Slapface. There's a Shudder film called Slapface that I love. I think I reviewed it on this channel. I know I reviewed X on this channel. But I'm going to say this movie right now, as I stand here right now, The Black Phone, is my #1 horror film of 2022 so far, halfway through the year. I liked it slightly better than X. Both are very, very good. But I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10, and I want you guys to tell me if you've seen this, what you think of it. What are your impressions? Let's talk in the comments. Let's discuss current horror. This is a unique and fun, but also basic and not an easy-to-follow plot. So big fan of this one. I hope you guys are too. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please comment down below to get this video bumped up if you guys want to see more current day horror reviews. There were a lot of good trailers before this movie that I want to check out coming in July, August, and September. So if you guys want to see more of these, please tell me and please share this video. And I will see you guys soon. Stay scared, dim the lights, and enjoy the movies. Take care.